The COVID-19 pandemic and its negative impact around the world has heightened prophetic discussions within Adventism. As a prophetic church born out of the Millerite movement during the mid-19th century, the prophecy of the second coming of Jesus, or Isa al-Masih, has always been one of the tenets of faith of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. However, in our church's fringes, we have loud discussions on what these prophecies mean and what these prophecies look like in our current times. COVID-19 and the United States of America's political situation have enhanced and increased discussions about prophecy on social media. These prophetic discussions cover date setting, conspiracy theories like Bill Gates, 5G, and other disturbing and non-biblical interpretation of prophecy. In many of these discussions, we use our passion and our zealousness to interpret Christian prophecy, to attack other people and religions, especially those that do not align and agree with our prophetic interpretation of the sacred texts. If the study of prophecy brings and breeds more hate and animosity and rancor and loathing and bitterness and dislike and disgust, then what is the purpose of prophecy? If Jesus is about to come, if indeed we are at the end of this world's history, how should we respond as followers of Jesus? There is a story in Matthew where Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives and the disciples came to him privately and asked Jesus, "Tell us, when is the world going to end? What are the signs of your coming? And what are the signs that the end of the world is coming?" See, the disciples were just as curious as we are right now. However, it is essential to know the context of the disciples' questions to Jesus. When Matthew wrote this story, the most sacred place of Jewish thought and culture was at the Roman Empire's hands. The Jewish Second Temple was destroyed, along with Jerusalem, by Titus's army. Matthew also records powerful arguments against various religious orders and sects. And in some parts of Matthew's story, he records increasing hostility and animosity and dislikes between these Jewish religious orders and sects. Some scholars even suggest that Matthew's community was expelled from the synagogues over the accusations and counter-accusations on who to blame for the destruction of the Second Temple and the fall of Jerusalem. And just like COVID-19 pandemic has made the rich richer and the poor poorer, the destruction of the Second Temple and the fall of Jerusalem also provided insight into the political and economic social context of Matthew's story. The poor farmers, the fishermen, and beggars, and prostitutes, and lepers are associated with Jesus, something that defied and challenged the Roman social order. This is the context of the question that the disciples asked Jesus as recorded by Matthew. What will be the signs of your coming, and what will be the signs that the end of the world is coming? Jesus replied in verses 4 and 5, "Watch out that no one deceives you." Verse 6, Jesus says, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come." The last line in the Greek would be translated as "the end is not yet." Jesus knows that his disciples will experience wars and rumors of wars. I mean, they were living in a time when Rome occupied Palestine. However, Jesus' message to them is, don't feel worried or anxious about the present situation. All sorts of things are going to happen, but they don't necessarily mean the end is already here. Jesus continued saying, nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. Wars, earthquakes, famines, pandemic. The end is not yet. Wouldn't it be easier if Jesus just gave us all the details about the end and the events leading up to the end? You know, where we could all line them all up, see exactly where we are in time, and know when we have to get ready for the end of the world? Wouldn't that be good? See, but that's never the case. Matthew 24:36 downplays date setting with the statement, no one knows about the day or hour. The end is not yet. So what then is the intention of Jesus' end-time prophetic teaching? If we cannot chart the full sequence of end-time events, then what is the purpose of end-time prophecy teaching? Matthew 24:42 explicitly reveals the purpose. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know what day your Lord will come. The key here is keeping watch. This is the punchline of Jesus' whole teaching of the end-time prophecy. See, the disciples wanted a series of events. They wanted the future all worked out in detail. They wanted to be able to put a date on it. But Jesus said, no, do not follow that line of thinking. The reason I gave you a description of the future is for you to keep watch. What does Jesus mean by keeping watch? Fortunately, Jesus doesn't leave us hanging in the dark. The teaching is followed by 4 stories, 4 parables that describe what keeping watch is all about in detail. Matthew 24:45-51 starts the first of the 4 parables on what it means to keep watch. In this story, the servant is wicked, and he says to himself, my Lord is not around and has long been absent. So this servant began to drink with drunkards, and he began to beat up his fellow servants. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, at an hour he is not aware of. Matthew writes that the master will cut this evil servant to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. What a harrowing story. What is this man's problem? He says to himself, who knows when my master will return? And who cares anyway? As a result, this man loses all sense of accountability to his master. He begins to beat up his fellow servants and manage them harshly. It becomes too tempting to say, since my master delays, I can live as I please. In this story, keeping watch is the opposite of what this very mean and very rude and very cruel servant is doing. Keeping watch means that if we believe in the prophecy that Jesus is coming back again, then it must be reflected in how we treat our fellow human beings.
When I finish my studies, I want to be a lawyer that fights for women's rights. Growing up in Congo, I have seen and experienced how women were mistreated and raped. I fled Congo back in 2014 with my family. The rebels slaughtered our cows, burned our houses and crops. I saw the rebels kill my grandfather and cousins. We were running for our lives day and night. Sometimes we sleep in the bushes and hide in the caves during the day until we reached Uganda. Uganda is a real blessing. The government gave us a small plot of land so we can start a new life. However, the services in the refugee settlement were very challenging. We used to only have 1 meal a day. United Nations World Food Program gave us corn, flour, and beans. Clean water was also challenging. We couldn't afford the school fees, so we missed school a lot. My parents would sometimes sell the food ration received from World Food Program. This food is supposed to be for our monthly ration. But my parents would sell the food just so they can pay the school fees. Sometimes my parents and brothers and sisters won't have food for days, just so I can go to school. I would also miss school days during my menstruation period since I didn't have access to sanitary pads. Also in school, there was discrimination. I was discriminated and made fun of because I struggled with the English language, just like the rest of Congolese refugees who spoke mostly French. At times, I get so discouraged learning English. I thought of just leaving school and getting married. But my parents encouraged me to work harder and complete my school work. These are just some of the challenges I face in achieving my dream to become a lawyer someday. When Adra came to our school, I felt so good that my dream might be coming sooner than later. Adra built our school a dormitory. Adra also helped the school by starting gardening and agriculture. Adra also provided French and English teachers who helped us in integration from French speaking to English speaking. Adra, together with AfriPads, also provided us with reusable sanitary pads. Now we will not miss school because of our mastery period. One day when I become a lawyer, I would like to go back to Congo to make Congo a better place to live. No more war.
The second parable is often called the parable of the 10 bridesmaids. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps but did not take any oil with them. The wise, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. Is there anything wrong with sleeping? Not in this parable. But there is a difference among these sleeping bridesmaids. The wise bridesmaids have oil, and the foolish ones do not have oil. The foolish bridesmaids had failed to plan for the possibility of a delay. In this story, keeping watch means developing sustainable solutions to problems as we expect the possible delay of the second coming of Jesus. Plan for sustainability. As a church, our ministries have to be sustainable. Our services have to be sustainable. The third story is the parable of talents. The narrative follows the servants as they use their abilities and skills to increase the value of their money, the money their king had given them. The servant who buried his talent failed to use his ability to do what the king asked him to do. In this parable, keeping watch means to use our God-given abilities to the fullest while waiting for the end of the world to come. To the fullest, not partially. When COVID-19 hit Uganda, government mandated a hard lockdown. So at ADRA, we put our heads together and we brainstormed how can ADRA continue to serve amidst this pandemic. We have to be creative and we have to use our talents so that we can continue serving the refugees. And also we have to make sure that we did not violate any mandates from the Ministry of Health.
I feel it is a scaring disease and it is a killer disease. I feel so scared. God should help us. Corona should not reach in Chakatu.
I have that fear. These days I cannot even hang out with my friend. I cannot even visit friends. So
it has made me so scared because someone is not allowed to go out. Someone is not allowed to meet friends. Someone is not allowed to hug even a relative. You're not supposed to shake hands. So it has made me so scared.
We are all trying measures to ensure that the humanitarian work does not end, but we are also protecting both the beneficiaries and the staff that are participating in the distribution. We are committed to ensure that we continue to support those that are in need. We have made these people our first priority, and we want to continue to support them, and we pray that God protects each and every person.
The fourth story provides the climax of Jesus' teaching of the purpose of prophecy. Matthew writes, "When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his throne in heavenly glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people from one another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invited you in, or needing clothes and clothed you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go visit you? The king will reply, I tell you the truth. Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you also did for me. Then he will say to those on his left, Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick in prison, and you did not look after me. And they will answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothes or sick or in prison and did not help you? He will reply, I tell you the truth, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me. In this story, keeping watch means treating people as though they were Christ. Imagine this with me for a minute. If the person you live, work, play, or go to church with were Jesus, would that affect the way you treat her or him? According to Jesus, the essence of keeping watch for his coming is how we treat our fellow human beings, with justice, with compassion, with love.
I was lonely. I needed someone to see me through, and I was at the end of my road. I needed someone to cut me loose. Then an angel out of the blue gave me the sense that I might make it through, and somehow I survived with no rhyme or reason. And now I know I'll make it through the miracle of you. I know the color of love, and it lives inside of you. I know the color of truth, it's in the image of you. If it comes from the heart, then you know that it's true. It will color your soul like a rainbow. And the color of love is in you. Colors of 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 love, like a bridge over troubled water. You stood beside me, and your love did not falter. And then the angel in you gave me the strength to trust the Lord will see me through. And that's how I survive. There's no other reason. And now I know I'll make it through the miracle from the heart, then you know that it's true. It will color your soul like a rainbow, and the color of love is in you. Colors of 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 love is in you. Colors of colors of colors of colors of love. So God, I wanna thank you. I can't thank you enough for showing me the meaning of true love. When I was lost and so in need, you opened up your heart. I needed you to comfort me. You opened up your arms. I couldn't face another day. You said, don't be afraid. Your love came unconditional and showed my heart the way. I know the color of love, and it lives inside of you. I know the color of truth. It's in the image of you. If it comes from the heart, then you know that it's true. It will color your soul like a rainbow, and the color of love is in you. Colors of colors of colors of colors of colors of colors of the color of love is in you. Colors of colors of colors of colors of love. The color of love is in you.
The purpose of the Bible's teaching about end-time prophecy is to teach us how to live now as we await the second coming of Jesus. As Adventist Christians, we have a lot to say about paying tithes and offerings, or studying the lesson quarterly, and having family worship, or keeping the Sabbath, or being vegetarians or vegans. And some of us Adventists have made such activities as testing truths for others to join our churches. But Matthew offers a more precise testing truth for us Adventists to waiting for the second coming of Jesus. To believe that Jesus is coming soon should have an impact on how we treat each other, love one another, be devoted to one another, honor one another, live in harmony with one another, stop passing judgment on one another, accept one another, instruct one another, greet one another, serve one another, be patient with one another, be kind to one another, do not lie to one another, forgive one another, teach one another, encourage one another daily, don't complain against another, pray for one another. The central purpose of prophecy is to teach us how to live today, right now, in our current context, to act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with our God.